The hum of the engines was steady, almost comforting, as Claire pressed her forehead against the cool oval window of the commercial jet. She wasn't looking at anything in particular, just the endless blue stretching into forever. The flight attendants moved quietly down the aisle, offering drinks, while the man in the seat beside her snored softly into his neck pillow. Claire was just another passenger, just another weary traveler among the hundreds making their way from Denver to Washington, D.C. That was the way she preferred it. Anonymous, invisible, ordinary. But fate has a way of finding people, even those trying their best to stay hidden. It began with a ripple of unease. A murmur passed through the cabin as people glanced toward the windows. At first, Claire thought it was just turbulence or the idle paranoia of passengers who didn't fly often. But then a child across the aisle pressed his face to the glass and whispered something that made his mother stiffen. "Mum, why are there fighter jets outside?" Claire's eyes widened. She leaned closer to her own window, heart thudding. And there they were, two grey F-16s, their sleek bodies gleaming in the sunlight, wings tipped with missiles, flying frighteningly close to their airliner. A nervous laugh broke from the row behind her. Must be some kind of escort, right? Nothing to worry about. But the tension in the air said otherwise. Passengers fumbled with phones, only to find the plane's Wi-Fi was down. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, calm but tight. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. We are in communication with the United States Air Force. Everything is under control. Everything is under control." The words rang hollow. Claire felt her chest tighten. She wasn't just any passenger. Not really. She hadn't told anyone, not even her best friends, that she had once been a pilot. And not just any pilot. She had flown the A-10 Thunderbolt II, the legendary Warthog. The jet known for saving lives when everything else had failed. But that was another life. A life she had buried after her husband's death, after she'd promised her daughter she was done with the skies. Now, here she was, thousands of feet in the air, watching two F-16s wave their wings in what every pilot knew was a desperate signal. Something was wrong. The cabin buzzed with restless energy. Fear spread like wildfire, unspoken but shared. People whispered theories, terrorists, technical failures, nuclear threats. Claire sat rigid, hands gripping the armrests, her mind replaying checklists she thought she had forgotten. One of the F-16s pulled slightly ahead, rocking its wings again before banking away just far enough to reveal its belly. Claire's breath caught. Painted across its underside were signal flares, something she hadn't seen since her service days. The fighter was crying for help. Her stomach turned cold. "Excuse me," she whispered to the flight attendant rushing by. "I need to speak to the captain. Now." The woman gave her a frazzled look. "Ma'am, please stay seated. Everything is under control," Claire snapped. "I know what they said, but I flew combat. That jet is signaling distress. I don't know why, but I can read it. You need to let me talk to the cockpit." The flight attendant hesitated, torn between duty and fear. Finally, she nodded. Within minutes, Claire found herself standing in the cramped cockpit, staring at two men who looked far calmer than she felt. The captain glanced back at her, eyebrows raised. "You used to fly. United States Air Force. A-10 Warthog." The co-pilot gave a low whistle. "Haven't heard that in a while." Claire leaned forward, pointing out the window. "Those F-16s, they're not escorting us. They're asking for help. They wouldn't be this close unless something had gone very wrong." The captain's jaw tightened. "We lost radio with them 5 minutes ago. Ground control told us to maintain course." "Then something bigger is happening," Claire said softly. "Something they can't tell you." Back in her seat, Claire tried to quiet her racing mind. But the silence outside was deafening. Then, in a blur of motion, another shape appeared in the sky, stocky, rugged, unmistakable. Her breath caught. An A-10. The Warthog. It lumbered into view like an old friend, unglamorous, slow compared to the F-16s, but built to endure. The sight pulled at something deep inside her. She remembered the feel of its stick in her hands, the way it rattled when the GAU-8 Avenger cannon fired, the way soldiers on the ground used to cheer when they heard its unmistakable growl. And then she realized that A-10 wasn't just flying nearby. It was answering the call. The F-16s banked toward it like children clinging to an older sibling. Together, the three jets formed a protective arc around the commercial airliner. Passengers pressed against the windows, their fear shifting into awe. Someone whispered, "What's going on?" Claire knew. She could read the silent language of wings and formation. The F-16s were running low on fuel or suffering system failures. They couldn't make it back alone. They needed guidance, protection. They needed the A-10's endurance and leadership. The A-10 dipped its wings, steady and reassuring. And for the first time that day, Claire felt hope. As the minutes dragged into an hour, the drama in the skies unfolded in silence above the world. On the ground, the story would later dominate headlines: 2 F-16s caught in a communications blackout during a critical defense alert, low on fuel, too vulnerable to return to base. But in the moment, only Claire and a handful of others understood the magnitude of what was happening. The A-10 guided them like a shepherd, slow enough for them to follow, steady enough to inspire confidence. It flew not for glory, but for survival, for theirs, and by extension, for everyone on that passenger jet. Claire closed her eyes, remembering the countless times she had done the same. The missions where she had stayed low and slow, refusing to abandon soldiers pinned under fire. The moments when the only thing standing between life and death was a battered warthog that refused to quit. Her seatmate, who had woken up and noticed her tension, asked quietly, "You look like you know what's happening out there." Claire hesitated, then nodded. "That A-10, it's not just another jet. It's a promise. No one gets left behind. The climax came suddenly. Warning lights flickered on the F-16s, visible even at a distance. One dipped alarmingly, its nose tilting toward the earth. Gasps echoed through the cabin. The child across the aisle began to cry. But the A-10 was ready. It slid into place beneath the faltering fighter, holding steady, almost carrying it with invisible hands. The sight was breathtaking, an ungainly beast cradling a sleek predator like a parent guiding a child. Claire's eyes blurred with tears. She knew the skill it took, the courage, the selflessness. The A-10 pilot was risking everything, dragging their slower, vulnerable frame into danger, just to keep those fighters alive. The passengers didn't know the technicalities. They didn't need to. What they saw was enough: sacrifice, strength, compassion written across the sky in wings and contrails. Hours later, the airliner touched down in DC safely. The passengers erupted into applause, not just for their own landing, but for the jets they had witnessed weaving a story of survival and unity above the clouds. As people disembarked, Claire lingered, staring one last time at the fading silhouette of the A-10. She whispered, so softly no one else could hear, "Thank you for reminding me who I was." She walked into the terminal, not as an invisible passenger, but as someone reborn. She no longer carried the skies like a burden, but like a gift, one that she could share, in stories, in teaching, maybe even in flying again one day. The power of humanity, she realized, isn't always about grand speeches or heroes in capes. Sometimes it's about a tired old jet refusing to leave its comrades behind. Sometimes it's about a passenger finding her courage again, because kindness has a way of calling us back to ourselves. And so the story spread, from the mouths of passengers to news anchors to families gathered around dinner tables. People spoke not just of danger narrowly avoided, but of hope unexpectedly found. They spoke of unity, of resilience, of the strange and beautiful moment when F-16s cried for help, and an A-10 answered the call. And somewhere in America, a little girl looked up at her mother and said, "I want to be a pilot one day." Claire smiled through tears and whispered, "Then you will. Because sometimes, the skies don't just carry planes. They carry promises."